Hey friends, welcome to another episode of the Growing Through Motherhood podcast. Today I have a dear friend, Melanie Jeffrey, on with me. Melanie is a phonics fanatic. She is going to fit perfectly into our month of homeschooling. She is a former full-time core literacy teacher in Ontario for children in kindergarten through third grade. She is a host of the top 2.5% globally ranked Phonics Rules for Kids podcast, which is so cool. So, you're going to get some great info today. Melanie is also a wife to her husband Bill and a mom of three hardworking young adults. She's formally trained in phonics instructions for kids and has led hundreds of children to become strong, independent readers using simple phonics skills as the foundation. Melanie's mission is to help homeschool moms teach their children to become strong, confident readers using simple phonics skills without tears. Anybody else need that? Yes, please sign me up. Overwhelm or reading battles at home. We are going to get rid of all of those today. So, welcome, Melanie. I'm so happy to have you.
Well, hey, Kelsey, it is an honor to be on your podcast, Growing Through Motherhood, and especially during your month of homeschool. Super
I
exciting.
know. It worked out so well, and I was just telling Melanie that we got in contact at the perfect time because I am teaching my third child how to read. And you would think, since I've already done this twice, that I would have some of those answers, but for some reason with him, it's been a little bit more difficult. And so I was really, really excited, y'all, because it doesn't matter how much you homeschool or think you have it figured out, sometimes you just need a little extra help.
Yes, and Kelsey, each child is different. So you're absolutely right there. What worked for one child may not work quite the same for another kiddo when it comes to teaching them to read.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're going to just dive in. So, the so called experts tell us that children should be reading by age 5. What is the actual normal development age range of kids learning to read?
Great question, Kelsey. So I like to break it into three different ages and stages. So the first would be pre-K. So that would typically be your 3 to 4 year olds. And in that phase, we would focus on just exposure, a lot of alphabet songs and rhymes and learning through play. If you have a sensory bin, put alphabet letters on the ping pong balls, have them scoop up a ping pong ball in a net and oh, what letter is that? And you could start introducing the sounds. Keep it fun, keep it playful. It's all exposure. Let them touch the magnetic letters, let them play with them on the fridge, really tactile. So, touching the letters and having fun with that. The second stage is where we're actually going to begin reading whole words with our kids, and that's kindergarten. Early grade one. So I call that the K1 stage. So when your child is 5 through 6 years old. The very first words that your child will read are those simple CBC words. And we call that CBC. That simply stands for consonant, vowel, consonant. Think of the word dog, DOG. We have a consonant, D, a short vowel in the middle, ah, and we have a consonant at the end. G spells G. So those CVC words are the very first words that your little reader can begin to learn reading and spelling. And then the third age or the stage is grade 2 to 3. So when your child is typically 7 through 8 years old, that's when we introduce those more advanced phonics skills, the prefixes, the suffixes, and those tricky vowel teams like EE spells long E in sleep, EA spells long E in leaf, EY spells long E at the end of hockey. So multiple spellings for the same sound. So those are the three stages, Kelsey, that I like to break reading instruction into for moms.
I love that. So we're not married to the age on that though, because we can still have fun with our kids even at that pre-K level, because that's what I'm running into with my little guy. Is he's more of like that I need to be doing something while reading. Like I need to just be moving or fidgeting or whatever. So I actually love that ping pong, scooping the ping pong and what is this kind of thing. What age would you typically say like they are like fully ready to learn how to read?
hmm And I also say, moms, you are your child's first and best teacher, and you are going to know if your child is ready for short, sessions of doing simple phonics skills and drills, typically ages 5 through 6. I would say definitely by age 6, we should at least be introducing simple phonics skills and having our children begin to read those simple CVC words. By age 6, we should be familiar with most of the alphabet letter names and sounds so that we can begin attaching those letters and sounds to read those very first words. But yes, some children, every child's focus and attention span varies. Every child's interest in learning to read varies. So I always say, don't panic. Your child will learn to read. And if you force it before your child is ready, and I think every mom knows what that feels like. And I think every mom intuitively knows, okay, maybe it's not yet time, maybe soon, but maybe I'm pushing too hard and too fast, and we'll get there. Maybe we just need to, stay in the stage of play for a little bit longer, and, then we can begin those simple phonics skills at home.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that because I definitely think that you do know when it's time. I've started with my little guy because honestly, I thought he was going to be really quick at learning to read. He loves books. I mean, he wants to read the same book over and over and over again. Like, he really enjoys books and reading and learning, but for some reason, his brain just kind of squirrels when it comes to actually doing the process of letters. He's starting to pick it up, and I really do think that that 6 to 7 years is a good range of like that's when they're really starting to turn their brain on to be able to function. I want to add in there, and you may have different feelings on this, but my kids have also gone to speech, and one of the things that I have recognized is the fact that they really tend to be ready to read when they start making that R sound, when they can start doing all of the sounds and hearing them in their head and in their brain and hearing them correctly with their speech has really helped them to be able to read as well.
And Kelsey, you bring up a really important point, and I have had speech and language pathologists on my show because it is so important. If your child is not correctly saying a sound or is having trouble articulating a sound properly, then, like for example, that R and the R and L sounds, I think, are the two latest sounds that children acquire. They are the two trickiest
Yeah.
sounds from what I have learned from speech and language pathologists as a teacher and as a podcaster having speech and language pathologist conversations
Yeah.
on the podcast. L and R are tricky, and they're the two latest sounds for children to accurately say. And if your child is struggling to make a sound correctly, or they're saying, instead of the R sound, they're saying V, or they're saying the V sound, or instead of the L sound, they're saying ooh, like a W sound.
Hmm.
When you go to do the superhero sounds drill, and I'll give you an example. If you're spelling the word will, let's say the name will, woo, eh, oh, if your child is having trouble articulating the W sound, they might put another letter there. So having the speech to support the sound and matching those sounds to symbols for our very first words as beginning readers is so important. Yes, you are absolutely correct.
I agree. And that's what's so cool is like I am not trained in that area. That's not something I went to school for. I was never going to school to be a teacher, but you, as a mom, if you will find the patterns and look at those things and start to really like try to understand why you are capable of picking up on those patterns just the same as, somebody who is trained. So never think that you are incapable of teaching your child to read because you were not trained to do so. You are very capable of teaching your child to read.
Absolutely. And I say, moms, you are fully capable. All you need is a few simple phonics skills in your back pocket, and you'll be good to go. And I say, even teachers, elementary teachers, we didn't just know how to teach phonics or to lead children through simple phonics drills to teach them to read. Somebody showed us, we were taught
Yeah.
this is how you lead your child through a word chain drill. This is how you teach children the superhero sounds drill. This is how you teach children to blend sounds to read whole words. So, moms, no more saying, but I'm not trained as a teacher because there was a time that I wasn't trained as a teacher either. In fact, Kelsey, I started as a music teacher. I did not have formal phonics training. I was exactly as the moms that are in your audience. And when my kids were young, and I did the best that I could, I bought all the books, and of course, I would have them read the simple words, as I'm sure that moms do. But as far as leading them through a simple phonics lesson with like the sight word drills and the word change, switching a letter to make a new word, and teaching them how to blend those sounds to read whole words wasn't something that I was good at. I hadn't learned how to do that yet. And especially when it came to those tricky vowel teams like
Mm.
IGH spells long I in the word night. Why is there a GH there? Why is it silent? And I didn't have answers from my kids, and I did the best I could. But when I was shown by a phonics coach in my classroom how to lead kiddos through simple phonics skills and drills, I thought, for moms who feel that, the choice um, not to homeschool no longer feels like a choice, depending on your district, depending on where you're living. If that is your choice, then I want to help those moms. I want to teach you what I know. I want to guide you because, as I said, no more saying, but I'm not trained as a teacher because you can know the exact phonics skills and drills that a trained teacher knows to lead your child to become a strong, confident reader at home.
I love that. So let's start a podcast, she says. Let's do that. I love it. All right. So, does a child need to know the whole alphabet before beginning to read? This is really funny because I actually taught my son. So, my daughter went to preschool. She had like a beginning thought process of alphabet and letter sounds, but her preschool teacher was like, if she was mine, I would not put her in kindergarten yet. Like, I would work with her some more before you put her in kindergarten. She's not ready yet. Not ready, but she has her mind elsewhere, you know? And so I feel like I had a basis for that. Well, then when it came to my son, my second born, I totally did not teach him in the alphabet first. And so I love this question because when I asked my speech pathologist about it, she was like, actually, they should learn phonics first. So, what are some signs that a child is ready to receive reading instruction? And do they need to know the whole alphabet before beginning to read?
What a great question. And I'm sure that moms in your audience are wondering the same thing. So it would make sense initially that you would think, oh, well, before my child begins to read whole words, they probably need to know all of the alphabet letters and sounds. It's a great idea. Yes, fantastic. However, when I have kids reading by lesson five, how do we do that? Well, if your child knows the letters and sounds for the letter M, M spells short A spells ah, S spells s, and T spells t. They already have four letters and four sounds that your child can blend to read and spell whole words. So it's just reading sound symbol matching. So if you know the letters MAST and you've taught your child just four letters in the sounds, you can have them read the word mat. They can read the word sat. They can read the word at. And if you wanted to, you could add a fourth sound and have them read the word mats. So, at, s. All
Yes.
words, Kelsey, that we speak and read in the English language are made of sounds, and it's just that simple. So, your child, mom, can be reading by lesson five. You do not have to wait until they've checked all the boxes on the alphabet letters and sounds checklist to begin reading. It's fantastic if they can, but to get a child actually starting that process of blending sounds to read words, and we separate sounds in words to spell. Can I give you an example?
Yeah.
So the word mat. All right, kiddo, put your little chopper hands up and we're going to chop that word apart into its sounds. Mat. Okay, here we go. Mm, ah, so you're teaching your child to chop that word apart into its smallest sounds, and they're going to match the letter that makes that sound so they can spell it. And if your child's fine motor skills are not fully developed, that's fine. Have them drag up the magnetic letters that match that sound. Have them spell that word with the magnetic letters. A, t. They can drag up M-A-T. What does that spell? Matt. They'll probably ask it as a question at first.
Yeah.
Matt. Matt, great job, kiddo. You've just spelled your first word. And that is something that I love to teach parents. We can be reading by lesson 5.
And then they feel confident, which is huge because they have just proven to themselves that they can not only spell, but also read a word. And I know my second, once he started understanding that he could break those into smaller letters, he was so much more willing to learn the sounds of all of the other letters because he recognized there's a whole other world out there. And he does love to play like video games. And once he realized that he could read the instructions on the games, once he learned to read, he almost taught himself how to read. It was the
Yeah.
craziest and coolest thing to watch him just kick it into high gear with like willingness to and desire to read, you know? So like whatever your child's like thing is that makes them interested in reading, you know?
And I like that sort of that internal motivation, the intrinsic motivation that you talked about coming from inside your kiddo. Wanting to read the instructions for how to play a game, or what book would you like to read? Would you like to be able to read your devotional at night? Is there a book series? What would you like to be able to read? And of course, you can start partner reading with your child and have them read those simple CVC words and the simple sight words. I like to sprinkle sight words in.
Mhm.
Having a child memorize an entire ring of sight words, like hundreds and hundreds. We need sight words, moms. We do.
Mhm.
Because not every word in the English language can be sounded out with phonics. Think of the word was. If you were a child and you didn't know that was spelled W-A-S, how do you think we're going to spell that? Well, W spells oo, short U, and then Z, W-U-Z. And boy, have I seen that a lot of times over the years, children spelling the word was W-U.
Yes.
So that's why sight words are important. But yeah, having a goal and a reason to want to be able to read more is fantastic.
Yeah, it's so fun and I love getting to watch them. So, okay, what materials do I need to teach phonics at home? With all the online freebies, it can get so overwhelming. So, do homeschool moms need a phonics curriculum and what do you offer for that? I've heard us talk about superhero words, right? Is that what you call them? Tell me
Yes.
all about it, friend.
Okay. So, what materials do I need to teach my child phonics at home? Moms, this can be very, very simple. I like to have a whiteboard marker, and kids like to put a sock on their hand. It's just something fun they can do, and then they can use that to erase the whiteboard. If your child is K1, definitely magnetic letters. And I like to change up the materials. Maybe for part of the lesson, your child is dragging up magnetic letters. Maybe for the next phonics drill, you're having them use that whiteboard marker and write. And a whiteboard marker requires less pressure than a pencil, especially for early writers. And mistakes are easily wiped away. And even just that motion of erasing is something that is tactile, it's kinesthetic, and helps. It's an action, right? It's something to do. So, and moms, I know there are a lot of free resources out there. There are fantastic free resources out there, loads and loads of free alphabet worksheets, and you can certainly use those. They're fantastic. However, I like to say those alphabet worksheets, wonderful, but let's use those as busy work. Let's use those as phonics skill reinforcement work. I think when you're getting into the meat of teaching your child to read, we need a curriculum. And the reason I advocate for this is that it's like putting a puzzle together without all of the puzzle pieces. At some point, we're going to have gaps in our phonics instruction, and phonics instruction is the laying the foundational pieces for your child to be able to confidently read without a struggle. So, yes, use the alphabet worksheets. There are loads and loads of them out there, but I do feel having a structured phonics curriculum, you're not guessing at what to teach the next day. You're not, printing out a phonics worksheet 2 minutes before you're planning your homeschool reading time. I really feel that that is going to set a really strong and firm reading foundation for your kiddo, and you do have a structure to follow so that there aren't any gaps. And at first, it seems pretty simple. And sometimes I feel we can get stuck in those simple CVC words like pig, dog, cat. What do I teach next, Melanie? Great question. Well, next you would add digraphs. And a digraph is a fancy phonics term. Di simply means two, graph means letters or symbols, two symbols that make one sound. And when I was teaching, sometimes I would ask, okay, kids, which letter in the alphabet spells ch, like the CH, ch,
Mm-hmm.
like in church or chip? And at first you could see their wheels turning, and then I would see like little grins begin to form as they realized that their teacher had just asked them a trick question. So
Right.
that's a fun way that you can introduce digraphs. So SH spells shh. And so digraphs are the next skill that you would introduce to your child after those CBC words. So tons of CBC worksheets out there, and we have lots of digraph worksheets, but don't stay there. Make sure your child is progressing. Keep them challenged, right? Our kiddos are more engaged when there's just a little bit of challenge in the next reading skill. So yeah.
Well, and I will say, again, coming from a background of not teaching at all, like it's so easy to get caught up in overwhelm of all of the things that I quote unquote should be doing because there are so many free things. And I think that you can get caught up in there's this and there's that and the other, and they all do look wonderful. But if you are bombarding your child and you're not moving the needle and you don't know the gaps to which you are trying to teach in, because this is, your first, second, or even like I said, my third time of going through all of this, I personally find a curriculum to be the absolute best way to go about it. It helps to make it easy for mom. It helps it to not be overwhelming. And if we're overwhelmed, if we're feeling overwhelmed or we're feeling unsure about what it is that we're doing, your child picks up on that. They understand and they know when we're overwhelmed or when it feels like a lot for us or when it feels like we're unsure. They also begin to feel unsure and overwhelmed. And this is already something that can be hard for them. So
Mm-hmm.
I just think that I do agree. I think curriculum is the way to go.
Yeah, and I would like to say like we should be able to teach phonics in 17 minutes or less a day. And homeschool moms, you have the monopoly on this because you are teaching your child one to one. You can go at the exact pace that your child needs. And if the delivery driver shows up, if the dog needs out, these lessons are broken into really short segments, and
Yeah.
you can take a break and you just come right back and you know exactly where to pick off. It is a simple phonics lesson routine that is the same every single lesson for all of the 120 lessons inside the principal kindergarten through second grade phonics curriculum. Teach your K to 2 child to read from CVC words to confident reader, because sometimes we have interruptions and oh, we're going to pick up where we left off. And when you have a routine, and I think that's important,
Yes.
in most places of our lives that we have some kind of structure and routine, then those interruptions are doable because you know exactly where you're going to come back, you know exactly where you're going to pick up at. And for your kids, I think kids like to know where the bookend is.
Yes, I was
I've
just
got
gonna say they know too when
they
this is
do.
only gonna take me 17 minutes. It's like doing the dishes for adults. Like if you think it's gonna take you an hour, you don't want to do that. But if you know that you're on top of it and it's only gonna take 15 minutes, You're totally right. It's so important for them also. Sorry, I
Yes,
interrupted
I
you,
bel
but that was
Oh,
exciting
no.
for me.
Absolutely. Yes. Kids like to know where the book end is, and kids thrive on routine. They really do. They want to know what's coming next, and they want to know when we're going to be finished so I can move on to the next thing for sure.
And it really helps those kids that want that control. Like there are some kids, and it seems like the readers that are a little more difficult to teach, and I may just be throwing this out there, but it feels like the ones that are a little more difficult to teach are also the ones that desire more control over things. And so I feel like whenever they know what is coming and they feel like they have a little bit of control about what it is that they are doing, they're more apt to be there and focus with you. Now, there's still times like my little guy, he needs frequent breaks on a regular basis, which I want to just say I love your thought process because that's not something that we are using right now is the magnetiles and the whiteboard. I have been teaching him the way that I taught the other kids and they didn't need those hands-on tools. But for him, he needs that movement. And that was one of the things I was going to ask you about was how to incorporate movement, but you already answered that before I even had the chance to ask. And that's such a wonderful, beautiful way of doing it. Plus, the sock on your hand. Yes, please. That's brilliant. It's so
It's
funny
fun.
those little bitty things, those teeny tiny things that they can just he would love that. I'm so excited to get that and, work with him on that. But yeah, I think that all of that matters. Okay, so what strategies that actually work with kids who have ADHD, since we're talking about it, and can hardly sit still during a short phonics lesson? As a classroom teacher, what have you found to help?
So this is a great question, and I know that some of your moms have kiddos who are struggling with those longer blocks of instructional time at home. So frequent breaks, as you mentioned, Kelsey, get
Yeah.
up into 10 jumping jacks, go run, go let the dog out, play with the dog, set a timer. Kids love timers.
Mm-hmm.
Timers have a definite boundary, a definite end, and it's not you calling them back. Oh, that's the timer going. Okay, time to get rolling in the next phonics drill. Do that for the next, 6, 7 minutes. Take another break. If your child needs breaks to focus, that's really important. And that's going to be a routine that you build in to these phonics lessons. So instead of expecting your child to sit for the whole 17 minutes, even though you're changing up the materials, you're having them use the whiteboard marker, the magnetic letters, you're having them get their little chopper hands up and chop those sounds apart in words. They may need a bigger gross motor body break as well. So definitely work that into your routine. Timers are great. And we have to move. Kids were made to move. Physical activity, as you know, Kelsey, helps them literally reset their focus.
Yes.
So that's
That is
really important.
always a requirement on your break. Is like I'm like, I will give you a break, but movement is required. It's not optional.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes. And
great.
as a teacher, like I would rarely keep a child in for recess. If we had something to chat about, let's take 1 or 2 minutes. They need that time to be outside and play. It's an actual mental and emotional reset for them. It's their time, regroup, and it's so important.
Yes, I absolutely agree. So, one of the things that I have found with my little guy, it's funny. So, I grew up all through school with, ADHD, and school was really hard for me. That's one thing I talk about all the time, especially when I was doing confidence to homeschool. Like, school was very, very hard for me. And that made me at one point in time think that, I was dumb or like I had all of these negative thought processes about school. And so I had one teacher when I was a senior in high school. I had one teacher that allowed us to sit anywhere we wanted to do class. And that was the first class that I passed with flying colors. And what I recognized was that if somebody dropped a pencil, I needed to know who it was that dropped the pencil. If somebody sneezed, I needed to know who it was that sneezed. And so, those distractions, and for some reason I couldn't just well, I mean, if it was behind me, especially because I feel like that was so often the answer was move me to the front of the class and maybe I'll pay attention better. But like if there was something going on behind me and I needed to know what that was because, my young ADHD brain squirreling, I would look behind me and then I would totally lose focus on what I was doing to begin with. So I think a space with limited distraction is super important. And even like the freedom, and I would love to hear what you have to say about, kitchen table versus doing school on a bed or on a beanbag or a certain space. I would love to hear what you have to say on that.
Mm. So I like that you mentioned about distractions.
Yeah.
This reminds me, and seating choice. We'll get to that. Distractions. This literally reminds me of the teacher who turns a student desk around so they cannot put their hands in and fiddle with what's in there. They just don't have access to it.
Yes.
All they've got is their desktop, and hopefully there's nothing on there except the paper and the pencil that they need. So working in a clutter-free space, at least the space where your child is actually doing the work, is key. So let's just have just the materials that we need, the pencil crayons, the markers, the erasers, and definitely the toys are out of sight. This is our workspace. As a teacher, I've also noticed, and I don't know, Kelsey, if you've noticed this with kids, some kids really struggle to sit. Like they stand and they're kind of bent over writing and they naturally want to stand, or it's lunchtime. Oh, everyone is sitting and they're standing, right? It's just maybe they need to stretch their back. Maybe that's more comfortable for them. So I think as long as your kiddo is working, and homeschool moms in particular, you have, um, I mean, you can do this very easily. You can accommodate your child so simply if they would rather stand. Maybe you've got a high table somewhere, or maybe you could invest in a desk where you can raise and lower the height. Maybe your child does his or her best work when she is standing and not sitting the whole time. Just that change, just that stretching of the muscles, just a change of position. Maybe the beanbag chair is their favorite place to read a book. Maybe they feel safe there. Maybe when they're comfortable, they're more willing to engage in a learning activity. So I think that seating choice, as you mentioned, is really important as well.
Yeah, or even like a little balance board where they're, trying to, because I think that my mom oftentimes didn't understand why I wanted music on while I was doing schoolwork at home. And she would tell me to turn it off so that I could pay attention, but really that helped me to pay attention. So, and I think that everybody is different. So, like for me, I needed background noise on. I still love to listen to like I don't know, like nature sounds or whatever. Just something calming that's music. But my little guy, like the fan in the bathroom can't even be on. He wants total peace, total quiet. My second child, he most definitely likes calming music on. So I think that you really just kind of like you play with what works, like there's no shame in playing to see what works for each of them because some of them may really enjoy having that music on in the background and another one may not. And it's okay to do school at two different times with them and accommodate each one of them and their needs. And that's the beauty of homeschooling is you get to be there one on one and everybody gets to have their needs met.
Yeah, homeschool moms, you have the monopoly on this for sure. You have such ability to accommodate and provide a flexible learning environment and schedule and alternative seating, alternatives to sitting for your child that really can't be replicated in a classroom. Teachers can try, but if there's one high top table, oh, well, maybe two friends get it today and the rest of us are sitting during our seat work, and there's only so many places in a classroom to put a beanbag chair, and there might be one or two. So you have such an ability to support your child as they learn best. Yeah, for sure.
All right. So tell the mamas how they can follow you, listen to your podcast, and where they can get your Phonics Rules for Kids program because it sounds phenomenal.
Well, thanks, Kelsey. Yeah, the best place for moms to find me is to hang out with me on my podcast, which is called Phonics Rules for Kids. I would love to meet you over there at the podcast. And I also have a Facebook group, Phonics for Kids, and you can hop in there and meet other moms teaching their kiddos to read and receive encouragement. And I do lives in there once a week with phonics tips for moms that I hope that they're finding helpful.
Yay, love that. Okay, final question. What are some words of encouragement that you could give homeschool moms who are struggling with self-doubt and wondering, can I really teach my kids to read?
Yes, mom, you can teach your kids to read. All kids can read, maybe not at the same rate, maybe not at the same time. And I always say there's no more saying mamas, but I'm not trained as a teacher because all you need is a few simple phonics skills in your back pocket. They may not be there yet, but come on over to phonicsrulesforkids.com. And that's what I do as a phonics coach for moms. And I have a heart to help homeschool moms in particular, because as I said, regardless or, depending upon the location and the region that you're in, the decision not to homeschool may no longer feel like a chore. Or even if your kiddo is in public education and they're struggling to read and maybe need that extra support at home, that's what I do, and I would love to help.
Yes, I love that. I love that so much. And yeah, your kid's not, if you are doing your work on your part as mom, they're not going to go through life not knowing how to read. Like you are 100% going to have a reader at some point in time. It just may not be by the age that everybody wanted it to be. So, or thinks that it should be. But all right, Melanie, well, I am so excited we got to do this. You have such great information, and I am so grateful to you for hanging out with me.
Well, thanks, Kelsey. It's been an absolute honor to be in your show today. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Hey friend, thanks for hanging with me today. If this episode made you laugh, think, or whisper, okay, Lord, I needed that, go ahead and follow the show, leave a review, or share it with another mom who needs a little holy encouragement. And hey, if you're ready for energy, focus, and calm that doesn't require a miracle, check out those peptides. Your support makes this show possible, and I'll be walking with you every step of the way. See you in the next episode.